Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about SQ3R. That is an acronym for Skim, Question, Read, Recite, Review. This is a method of reading, active reading, that will help the reader to understand the text better. It's very good for studying. SQ3R goes back a ways. That's sometimes called SQ3R because there are three R's to remember. It is a reading comprehension method named for its 5 steps: survey, question, read, recite, and review. The method was introduced by Francis Pleasant Robinson in his 1946 book, Effective Study. That goes back before my parents were born, but it is still very useful. The method offers a more efficient and active approach to reading a textbook material. It was created for college students, but is extremely useful for high school students as well. So the first part of it, the first letter, is S. First step, survey or skim, advises that one should resist the temptation to read the book and instead first go through a chapter and note headings, subheadings, and other outstanding features, such as figures, tables, summaries, and paragraphs. Let's be real. Who is tempted to sit down and read a whole textbook? No one in the universe. Everybody who has ever had a textbook in his or her hand, ever in the history of the universe, has gone through it first and read the subheadings. They've gone through and looked at the charts, the tables. They've read all of the captions, all of the pictures. They do that first, and then they read it. And we've been doing it right this whole time because that gives us a preview of what we're doing. It prepares our brains for what we are about to read. So this survey step only takes 3 to 5 minutes, but it provides an outline or framework for what will be presented. The reader should identify ideas and formulate questions about the content of the chapter. Okay, actually the questioning comes in the next one. This is a typical textbook. We don't deal with typical textbooks very often. We're looking at things online, but the format is still the same. So this gives us an idea of what we're skimming. There's a lot to skim because there is a lot that is just not normal old plain text. There are a lot of things that are out of the ordinary. So of course we want to pay attention to the title of the chapter, all of these subtitles, all of these figures that they have here. These are the descriptions of the pictures. Go ahead and read those captions, read all of them. And then also we want to read the highlighted words, the bolded words, especially if they are vocabulary words. And if we know those vocabulary words before we start reading the whole text, we're in a lot better shape. And if we have a picture of what we're reading, so we know it's biology, we know maybe it has to do something with the root structure of a plant, so we have a much better idea what we're reading. Now we go on to questioning once we've done the skimming. Generate questions about the content of the reading. For example, convert headings and subheadings into questions and then look for answers in the content of the text. Other more general questions may also be formulated. Here's some questions we might ask. What is this chapter about? What questions is the chapter trying to answer? How does this information help me? That's a good one right there. This question step again only takes 3 to 5 minutes to complete, but it will motivate the reader to seek answers in the questions. Right? Why do we do that? Why do we question what we're reading? Why do we formulate the question before we even really start to read? A lot of times when we read, we just don't pick up any material because we don't have a purpose. We're not looking for something specifically. But if we've gone through the subheadings and the special text and we've made questions out of that, now we have a purpose because we have to answer those questions. So here are some good things to do when we're asking. Again, we look for the titles and subheadings to make those into questions. The pentad, who, what, when, where, why, those are super important. Those are going to give us information answers, content answers, not yes or no answers, sometimes called binary choice answers. We don't want those. That's true in journalism and that's true in active reading. Sometimes the who, what, when, where has to be modified. If we're looking at geology, obviously who is not going to matter. We're talking about rocks. We're not talking about people. But if we're talking about social studies, all of those are important. The who, the what, the when, the where, all of those become important. We want to think about what we already know about the subject, but then we have to be prepared to put to rest information that is not quite right or has too many holes in it. And then we want to make up questions about the text. The first R is reading. Now we're finally going to jump in and we're going to read it. Use the background work done with S and Q in order to begin reading actively. This means reading in order to answer the questions raised under Q. Passive reading, in contrast, results in merely reading without engaging with the study material. All right, so we are reading with purpose. We are answering the questions that we have formulated. And when we do that, we might be writing notes. If we own the textbook, we might be writing the notes right on the textbook, and we might also be highlighting. As we move to college, concurrent enrollment, we will own the textbooks, and we do have that contract or that option. Here's somebody who's been very diligent in highlighting, and this is exactly what you should not do. They have highlighted everything in the book. So what's important? Every single word of it. Well, why even bother highlighting it? Why not just highlight what's unimportant? Well, that might be just as effective. So all of these are overdone. And also the color coordination doesn't work, because if pink signifies something, then it's more useful. If blue signifies something, maybe blue is a vocabulary word. Maybe yellow is something that challenges what we already knew. Maybe pink is just something we find really interesting, or maybe something that we're going to quote in a paper. Those color codes can be really useful, and we've totally forgone the color codes here. Also, we didn't use the pen at all. I see a little over here. But there are no notes written in the margin. So really, when you're taking notes in the text, you want to have a combination of all of those things. If you want to use different colors, you can, but I do recommend you highlight and you write with a pencil or a pen, and then be sparing about what you write. Let's look at a better example of taking notes in the text. Here we have much less highlighted. That's what we want. This person may have color coordinated things. I see that little things are highlighted in pink. So maybe that is words that that he questions. I don't know why he does that. And then maybe yellow means something, maybe blue means something, but it's very sparing. There's not a lot there. And then we have a combination of writing with notes, and that is a very good way to do it. Write your own notes and highlight. The second R is recite. Second R refers to the part known as recite. The reader should try to retrieve from memory what was learned in the same manner as telling someone else about the information. It is important that the reader use his or her own words in order to formulate and conceptualize the material. Try recalling and identifying major points, heading and subheadings, and answers to questions from the Q step. The recite step may be done either in oral or written format and is related to the benefits of retrieval, testing effect, in boosting long-term memory for the material. All right, what does that mean? Putting it in your own words, super important. We have old Bill Shakespeare here. Bill Shakespeare and I go back a long way. His Sonnet 18, the Roman numerals up there mean 18. Sonnet 18 is most famous. We can rewrite it, but when we rewrite it, we don't have the iambic pentameter. We don't have the rhyme. That's okay. He took care of that part. But when we rewrite it in our own words over on the right side, now we are ingesting it. We are showing that we know it, and we are showing what those lines mean. So that is a very good exercise to do. I wouldn't recommend this for somebody who is reading a whole Shakespearean play, a sonnet certainly, and if you are an actor in a Shakespearean play, you definitely want to put things in your own words. But that's just one example of how to recite effectively, putting things in your own words. Also, we have reciting it out loud. So here we have somebody in the mirror talking to herself, reviewing the material that she learned, and like she's teaching it to someone else. However you want to do that, go for a walk, think about it. Imagine explaining it to somebody. Maybe you have a study group that you're going to go to. Imagine how you're going to present the material to the study group. Maybe you have to present it to the class. All of those are really important for the reciting step in the SQ3R. Pretend like you have to teach it to someone else. Okay, the final R is to review. The final R is review. In fact, before becoming acquainted with this method, a student probably just uses the R&R method, read and review. Provided the student has followed all recommendations, the student should have a study sheet and should test himself or herself by attempting to recall the key phrases. This method instructs the diligent student to immediately review all sections pertaining to any key words forgotten. So we're reviewing. I have an example here of somebody reviewing their own notes. They have highlighted things that maybe are super important. Maybe they have highlighted things that they just keep forgetting no matter how many times they've gone over it. They keep forgetting it, so they're going to emphasize these a little bit better. One thing I'd like to point out about this person's note is they're extremely well written and they are kind of lengthy. I don't see abbreviations. I never write notes that way, and I do not recommend anybody write notes that way. Write them in the sloppiest handwriting that you can still read. That's extremely important. You have to be able to read your notes. Nobody else has to be able to read them. Abbreviate things. In American history, I never wrote out the word American. I learned very soon that this is just too long of a word. If I just write AM for American, or if I'm always talking about the country, I use capital U, capital S. Make it easy. Abbreviate it and write in handwriting that you can get. Use symbols if you want. Use arrows. Underline things, circle things that are super important. But you do not have to write notes that are this neat because nobody is going to grade your notes on their neatness. You are going to use your notes and you are going to grade your notes based on how well they helped you to get through the quiz or the test. All right, that is SQ3R in a nutshell. So we know how to now survey or skim, question, and then we read. The next R is to recite, and then we review. If you have any questions, please let me know.